Disney has announced over $5 billion in budget cuts company-wide. Things are definitely going to be changing, but how will those cuts alter the theme parks and the Disney movies we know and love? Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. The Walt Disney Company has been on a wild ride the past few months, and the buzz surrounding layoffs, union negotiations, and major company restructuring is just starting. So what's really going on? What changes will you see, and what does the future of Disney look like? Let's start by getting you up to speed. So what's been happening lately at Disney? For the long answer, we got a whole video outlining everything that's taken place within the Walt Disney Company since November 2022. But here's a quick recap. In November, Bob Chapek was ousted as Disney's CEO after serving in that position since February 2020, and taking his place is former Disney CEO Bob Iger. This was not an amicable split. Chapek was more or less forced out after making decisions that company execs and investors were not happy with, and the company stock prices sharply fell after the 2022 Q4 earnings call. Upon returning to the helm, Bob Iger made several dramatic policy reversals, including restructuring the entire Walt Disney Company and doing away with a new Chapek-led division, Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution, or DMED, and put his focus on the company's streaming division. Iger also announced major company-wide budget cuts to the tune of $5.5 billion and 7,000 employee layoffs. So what does that cost-cutting mean for you? How will it affect Disney movie releases and your experience in the theme parks? Let's start with the division of the company seeing the most cuts. Disney's planning on cutting $3 billion in non-sports content. That's everything that falls in the first division of the company, Disney Entertainment, which includes the company's full portfolio of entertainment, media, and content businesses globally, including streaming. Basically all media except for ESPN. Iger said, "We will take a very hard look at the cost of everything we make across television and film." In the 2023 Q1 earnings call, Iger used the phrase curating content a lot. But what does that really mean? Well, this is a very specific term, and paired with comments about focusing on Disney's core brands and franchises, it seems we may see Disney swinging for the fences a lot less often and instead focusing on bolstering existing content. Sequels are currently in the works for Toy Story, Zootopia, and Frozen. Disney will also continue to focus on Pixar, Star Wars, and Marvel, which all have historically delivered higher returns at the box office. Disney likely isn't going to be taking any risks. Instead, they're going to focus on the proven moneymakers to help set their entertainment division and streaming on the right track. But even within those big moneymaker franchises, Disney is going to play things a little differently. We've been seeing shifts in movie release dates as Disney tries to update their filming schedules to line up with more favorable release dates. Last year, we reported that the new live-action Haunted Mansion film was delayed until August 11th, but it's now shifted up to a July 28th release date. If July 28th sounds familiar to you, it's because that was a release date for the upcoming Marvel film, The Marvels, which has now been pushed back to November 10th. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse are still on lock for 2023 release dates, and it appears that Marvel shows Secret Invasion and the second season of Loki will see a 2023 release date as well. But several shows expected in 2023 are seemingly being bumped to the following year. What If Season 2, Echo, Ironheart, X-Men 97, and Agatha Coven of Chaos were all originally rumored to have 2023 release dates, but it's looking more likely that they may come out later than expected. I'll talk more about why Disney might be delaying these streaming shows later in this video, but let's shift gears into what might change within Disney movies. One of the brands Disney is focusing on for the future is Pixar, and specifically Toy Story, and they're hoping to avoid missteps like Lightyear going forward. Compared to other Pixar films, Lightyear was a flop, so what went wrong? Well, Pixar Chief Creative Officer Pete Docter recently explained that ultimately there was a disconnect between what people wanted and expected and what the movie ended up giving them. Docter explains, "I think probably what we've ended on in terms of what went wrong is that we asked too much of the audience. When they hear Buzz, they're like, great, where's Mr. Potato Head and Woody and Rex? And then we drop them into this science fiction film and they're like, what? This isn't to say that Disney won't continue to expand on their current franchises with new side stories and installments, but they'll likely keep things connected a little more directly. Consider how Disney has handled one of their biggest new Star Wars shows, The Mandalorian. We were introduced to brand new characters and new planets, but it wasn't long until fan favorite characters were introduced to the series, often for the first time in live action. Disney will likely be looking for more ways to tie in that new content with the old to curate their properties rather than launch ambitious and possibly flop-worthy series and movies. Now, as for theme parks, we might not see anything new for quite some time. Before we dive deep into why Disney's theme parks likely won't see massive changes in the near future, let's talk about how the rest of those budget cuts are going to shake out. After the $3 billion in cuts to Disney's media division, they're still looking at $2.5 billion that will be cut by general operating costs. So that breaks down to 50% marketing and 20% technology, procurement, and other expenses. That remaining 30% will happen in labor. Disney's already announced layoffs for 7,000 employees. Most likely, the majority of those cuts are happening due to dissolving the entire Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution division of the company, basically a marketing and sales arm of the company that was created by Bob Chapek to let the creatives do their thing and the marketers do theirs. Now Iger is shifting the marketing and distribution further in-house and giving back control to the creators of the content. The theme parks are not likely to see a large number of layoffs, if any, particularly because the parks continue to be the one part of the Disney company that continues to succeed, while the rest of the company has been dealt some blows. But some cuts will be made in DPEP, which is Disney Parks Experiences and Products, according to Josh D'Amaro. It just won't be on the front lines. That's not to say things won't change for Disney Parks employees, though. In fact, many are hoping things do change. Cast member unions and Disney have been battling over contracts since October 2022, when the most recent agreements expired. In early 2023, members of 6 unions representing Disney World employees voted no on a contract offered by Disney. The unions, which represent around 30,000 full-time Disney World cast members, have said that Disney's offer, which proposed raises of only $1 a year for most workers, quote-unquote, was not enough to rectify the immediate concerns regarding the city of Orlando and the surrounding area's increased cost of living. Unions have been pushing for Disney to immediately increase the minimum wage from $15 to $18 per hour and increase the pay of those who make closer to that by $3 to keep up with inflation. The 6 unions representing those employees have since shared that they will soon announce public actions that will bring light to the plight of cast members struggling to survive the devastating increase in the cost of living. Again, quote unquote. According to Daniel Klein with The Street, if Disney and the unions do not come to an agreement on a contract and the current short-term extension comes to an end, the door is wide open for an employee strike. And Universal Orlando recently announced a minimum wage increase to $17 per hour, which could further fuel Disney World cast members' fire. Disney World employees have been represented by unions since the early 1970s, nearly since the park opened, and there has never before been a strike. While a workers' strike is not off the table, it is unlikely that things will progress that far. In addition to being a complete PR nightmare for the Walt Disney Company, they can't really afford to let their most profitable division of the company stop operating even for a day. And if nearly 40% of their workforce went on strike, that's likely what would happen. We'll be covering news and updates on any of those forthcoming public actions by the unions, but at this time, no potential strike deadline has been set. Regardless, the theme parks probably won't look too much different the next time you visit. There's plenty of ongoing construction at Disney World and Disneyland, but a lot of it is smaller scale with no plans for major expansions like we saw in 2019 with Galaxy's Edge or 2021 with Avengers Campus. At the beginning of the pandemic, we saw Disney Parks projects stall or get canceled completely, and that momentum hasn't really picked back up. The Mary Poppins attraction slated for Epcot, Dunzo. The retheme of Spaceship Earth, off the table for now. Reflections Resort, totally can't. They don't even talk about it. Yep, Tron is about to open in Magic Kingdom, and the center of Epcot will finally tear down the walls and open Journey of Water and the new Festival Center, but there's no more major ride or land openings on the horizon domestically. Instead, we'll likely see smaller additions like Disneyland's announcement of Rogers the Musical coming to Disney California Adventure for a limited time this summer. Yes, this is that Avengers musical featured in Hawkeye. And Disney California Adventure is also getting a retheme of the Pacific Wharf area of the park, which will become San Francisco from Big Hero 6. The big stuff though, the new lands and new rides, that's currently only happening in Disney's overseas parks. Any larger expansions or additions for Disney World or Disneyland may not be in the cards for a while, and once they are, they might seem a little familiar and kind of confusing. Bob Iger seems to be obsessed with Zootopia, an all-around good movie, but one that is not typically ending up on a Best Disney Movies list, at least in the States. It may not feel like Zootopia has quite the same pull as other films, but in reality, it's not too far behind the box office giants of Frozen and Frozen 2, and it beat out both Moana and Coco in box office revenue. The majority of that revenue comes from overseas markets though, so why does Iger keep bringing it up? Why are they making a sequel? And why is he speculating that Disney may add Zootopia to Animal Kingdom? There are a few reasons that could be at play here. A new sequel means a renewed and continued interest in the franchise. Disney is curating that content that they already own and expanding on the proven moneymakers. Perhaps Iger's goal is to reel in more international international tourists to the domestic Disney parks. It's probably a smart move considering those guests tend to be heavy spenders when they do visit. And Iger has stated that he's looking to target once-in-a-lifetime trip-goers rather than casual park-goers. A Zootopia Land is already under construction in Shanghai Disneyland. It's slated to open in 2023, and it's a lot easier for Disney to transplant some of their overseas rides, a la Tron, rather than develop all new technology. New, groundbreaking rides aren't off the table in the future, but it certainly is easier and significantly cheaper for Disney to work with what they've already got, like how Avatar is being transplanted to Disneyland, though no word yet on if that does in fact a Flight of Passage clone. It's not likely. Since reuse, recycle, and revamp seems to be the name of the game when it comes to their media division, we can likely expect more of that for the theme parks as well. So let's talk about Disney hotels. With Disney focused on streaming and in-park projects that are years in the future, other companies may swoop in and take advantage of Disney's lack of expansion on the hotel front in Florida. Park attendance continues to increase, even with Disney keeping that park pass reservation system in place to limit the number of people in the parks on a given day. Iger has said that they hope to increase the number of park guests by adding more lands and more stuff to the theme parks in the future. But if that does happen, where are all these people going to stay? Like I mentioned earlier, Reflections Resort, which was going to be just across the water from Wilderness Lodge at Disney World, isn't happening anymore. The only new hotel addition on either the Disney World or Disneyland front are the new Disney Vacation Club towers at existing resorts. Both the Polynesian Village Resort and the Disneyland Hotel are getting a new building with some additional rooms, but that construction is not on a par with a whole new hotel concept when it comes to increasing the number of rooms available. Disneyland is pretty much at max capacity for adding new hotels to the surrounding area, but Disney World's surroundings are a hotbed of construction and expansion. We've just seen the new Drury Hotel open by Disney Springs. This hotel offers a complimentary breakfast buffet and an evening kickback that includes free alcohol and a food spread that could 100% serve as a meal or solid evening snack. And at around $200 to $300 a night or less for a room, including 2-room suites, that's a pretty decent entry into the competition of staying on-site or off-site when you visit Disney World. Not to mention, this is a good neighbor hotel, so you'll still get some Disney Resort perks like early theme park entry. And we've just seen a new permit filed for a land near Disney's All-Star Resorts that's zoned for shopping, restaurants, and potentially a hotel. With lots of open land for construction and Universal Orlando adding a new luxury hotel to coincide with Epic Universe opening, there will be more opportunities and potentially more reasons to stay off-site when visiting Disney World. So speaking of Universal, gone are the days of Disney fast-tracking the opening of entire theme parks just to beat out the competition like they did when opening MGM, now Hollywood Studios, to beat the opening of Universal Orlando. Instead, it seems that Disney's sitting back and letting Universal open a whole bunch of new and exciting things with little to no retaliation. Epic Universe is slated to open at Universal Orlando in 2025, definitely with Super Nintendo World, but also rumored there are additions to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, classic Universal Monsters, and a new How to Train Your Dragon area of the park. Super Nintendo World just opened in Universal Hollywood, and we've got full coverage over on DisneyFoodBlog.com. People are pretty impressed with the West Coast version of this land, so you can bet it'll be a big deal when it opens in Orlando. This land drops you right into a video game where you can ride a real-life Mario Kart. This augmented reality ride lets you collect coins and throw shells to sabotage your opponents, just like in the game, and Universal has even added their own version of Magic Bands to Super Nintendo World. Power-up bands let you interact with the land similar to how Magic Band Plus does in Disney World and Disneyland, so it seems Universal is even coming for some of that Disney in-park tech. Though power-up bands aren't as widely used across Universal, they only work in that one land for now. Food is also heavily themed in Super Nintendo World, leading to an overall immersive experience. The immersion is certainly on par with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter or Galaxy's Edge and Pandora at Disney, so it'll be interesting to see how many people opt to add on a Universal day or visit Florida just to go to Universal over Disney World once Epic Universe opens and the East Coast gets its own Super Nintendo World. Universal is also opening a family-oriented park in Frisco, Texas that will feature Shrek and the Minions, and in Vegas, they're basically opening a year-round Halloween Horror Nights with an immersive horror attraction. Disney's expanding its overseas offerings, though most of those projects are nearing completion, and expanding its fleet of cruise ships, something Universal hasn't tapped into yet. But as for the direct competition between the Orlando and Southern California theme park scenes, it looks like Disney is letting things ride for the time being. You never know when Disney could drop some big announcement though. Avatar coming to Disneyland was almost a throwaway line at the Q1 earnings call this year. There is Destination D, the smaller format version of the biannual D23 Expo convention, coming to Disney World later this year, and it could produce some major announcements for the parks. As always, stay tuned here, sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be the first to know about everything that's announced. Now, if you live in Philadelphia, Chicago, or Kansas City, or even Munich or London, Disney might be coming to you soon. As part of the Walt Disney Company's 100th anniversary, a touring Disney 100 exhibit is popping up at several US and European cities. This is a 15,000 square foot exhibition with over 250 items on display, including a hologram of Walt who welcomes you to the exhibit. Hundreds of thousands of guests are expected to buy tickets to the exhibit during its tour that will continue touring around the world until at least 2028. It's likely that Disney is hoping to create a renewed sense of nostalgia with this exhibit, encouraging visitors to remember the joys of Disney films from their childhood. Even if the Disney 100 exhibition isn't coming to your town, Disney's going to make sure they remain front and center in as many households as they can. The Mandalorian premiered on ABC, Freeform, and FX to bring more viewers than ever in the Grogu-loving Disney Plus subscribing fold. That doesn't mean Disney's putting their biggest streaming hit on cable, though. Just the first episode of the new season, and you'll need to subscribe to Disney Plus to see the rest of the series. Bob Iger did say in that Q1 earnings call that they're going to market the platform more than the shows. Now, once people get in the door on Disney Plus, they got to find a way to keep them. People watch HBO for House of the Dragon and The Last of Us, Apple TV for Severance, Netflix for Stranger Things and Wednesday, but the struggle right now is how to keep those viewers after that big show has ended. In addition to reviewing pricing for Disney Plus and rebalancing the marketing strategy, Disney's focused on how to keep long-term subscribers. They'll likely do that by focusing on a constant or semi-constant offering of verified high-performing series and movie releases on the platform. Disney is shifting release dates around, presumably to keep the content flowing so there are no lulls when people may decide to unsubscribe. That could account for Disney's shifting release dates, specifically for those big anticipated Disney Plus shows. And Bob Iger was very clear that streaming is his #1 priority, so we can expect Disney media that falls into that category will see the most changes in the near future. He said he expects Disney Plus to be profitable by 2024. So that's a date to keep in mind, as Disney could switch back to the parks and expansions into new lands and more once this division of the company gets turned around. If it gets turned around. Things are definitely in a transitional phase across the Walt Disney Company. Everything feels kind of shaky right now. While some statements and actions may have Disney fans scratching their heads, it seems that Disney execs are feeling like the company is getting back on the right track with Bob Iger at the helm. These cost-cutting measures will likely have little visible effect on the average Disney park goer or Disney Plus subscriber, but many little changes are setting the company in a different direction. We'll be here every step of the journey to let you know what will and won't change about your upcoming vacations and more based on these massive cost cuts, layoffs, company restructuring, and other big shifts. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.